Morning, Bill. How are you? Can't hear you.
Hey, Bill.
Hey,
Uh, this mic has got a button on it, and I like that I can mute it from the button, but I sometimes forget to turn it on. What's going on, man?
I got stickers from my daughter yesterday.
Nice.
So, I just added those to the planner to make it even more epic.
You know what's funny is my daughter does the same thing, and she always wants to put them on my journal. So always like stickers, and yeah,
It's a thing.
it's a thing, man. How was your day yesterday?
Really good. It was really good. I had a really, really solid day yesterday. Got everything done. AM was done early. Um,
Dang.
so I did a little extra blocking and tackling just because I had the time and the kids were distracted doing their own things. So it was good. What about you?
Yesterday was okay. I'm trying out this thing about having 5 chats a day, and I think I've got to put some time around it, or else it just kind of stretches into this thing. So I was it was a little. Also, Mondays are kind of like a reset for me as far as like loading up a bunch of like social media content and things like that, so that way, kind of get back in the groove after taking the weekend off. So I was on social a lot yesterday. I need to be doing a little bit more deliberate stuff over on LinkedIn. So did some of that yesterday and plan to continue doing that and talking about some stuff. And yeah, it was okay. The family was gone for most of yesterday, so it was nice to kind of work just uninterrupted without kids or family or anything else like that. Good morning, Michelle. But yeah, it was okay. It feels like it took longer than it needed to be productive, if that makes sense.
So this is something that I am going through in my accountability group is around time boundaries, which is a concept you and I talk about all the time. But I think when we get comfortable, we let things slide, even though we have, I have boundaries in my planner for the day based on time blocks. But what I'm seeing over and over as a pattern, whether you're a low level or a high level productivity person, is you let boundaries slide.
Yeah.
That's just something all of us do. So I've been kind of thinking about that concept. Is what is it that causes us to let boundaries slide even when we know they're important?
Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer for that, but I find myself doing the same thing. And the thing that I think about and journal on. Whoa, you okay?
Pardon? Yeah, sorry.
Well,
I think I swallowed the coffee
the thing that I think about that in that same vein is like, can I be consistent even when I'm at the level that I want to be at, right? Or does like everything just start to like slide and fall apart because like things are pretty good? Like this is a thing that I journal about because, I don't know. I mean, yeah. So I don't know why that happens, but I think that there is that going to be a thing? Like how do you work like you're broke even when you're not? Is that the thing? Because when it's a deadline. I was talking about this with my sister the other day. When we were 20 and we had like $3 to our name, you could make that thing last forever, right? Like 50-cent tacos and doing everything you could to like stretch your dollar. And then like you get some money and it's just like, shoot, it just goes so fast, So I wonder if time is just like the exact same thing, and you just have to be as intentional with your time as you possibly can be, because it is a constant slip. Maybe I'm open to this, that we're hitting that wall of like habit resistance, right? When you're trying to build a new habit and you get to that informed, I forget what it calls it in the book, but like you hit this level to where in the beginning you have uninformed optimism, right? You're just like, oh my God, this is going to be great. There's not going to be any problems. And then you get into the suck of it and you're like, oh, there's some problems here, right? And I need to adjust this to make it mine. So maybe we're hitting that stride. And if we can just be consistent with it, then what happens is on the other side of it, we're, actually changed as far as how we manage our time.
Maybe. I think that could be it for certain ones. But I'm thinking it's even a more global concept than that, because you definitely have like the ups and downs and ebbs and flows of certain habits for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that most people don't get to the point where they're always on time. They're always respecting the boundaries that they set for themselves. Like it's just something that they always do. It may just be a human flaw. Like we always drift if we don't have vision. We always have, whatever.
Yeah.
Because obviously we can't be perfect, and that would be perfect, right?
Maybe. I just think that I think that some. Well, okay, so when we add in disc to this, and we figure out like, okay, let's add that element to it. There's going to be things that you enjoy doing and things that you don't, right? And when you take the extrovert and introvert and ambivert and all that stuff, like what recharges your batteries, right? Because I think that depending upon how you're wired and how you run and how you think about all this stuff, you might not have any struggles at all with, being consistent and managing your time. Now, you might be terrible at managing the relationships because you're so time focused, right? But I think it's a bandwidth issue that's tied to your comfort zone more than it is anything else, right? Like it's super easy for me to go chit chat with people and, waste the day chit chatting because I like chit chatting with people when the topics are within a certain range. So I don't know.
Right. So that's an interesting point because laying that over it makes sense because like for me, I get caught up in ideas and I like to go research them and then eventually talk about them. And that'll take me off my time block every time if it's a good subject. Not every time, but a lot. So, and then for you, right? If you get into an interesting subject with an interesting person, forget the schedule, right? So It's like, what's the mechanism in there that allows us to go, hey, I have important goals that need to be hit, and this is important to me. I need to turn this switch off today, or whatever, pull back, or That's environment design.
Really interesting.
Yeah, for me, environment design is a big part of that. That's why I talk about it so much because that's why it's so important to me because I know it helps me with that. But I can't always not be on social media, right? Because I can't always whatever fill in the blank.
Yeah, I think that everybody's like stumbling block because like that's kind of what I think about it, right? Is that it's largely personal to the individual, right? Mm-hmm. And then I think the thing that you and I talk about all the time is avoidance, right? Mm-hmm. How conscious are you that this thing that you're doing is taking away time from other stuff you have to be doing? Is it did you get lost in it because it's just like awesome, or is it like one of those things? When you're like a kid and your parents are like, okay, you finally got to clean under the bed and you crawl under the bed. It's like the most comfortable space ever. And you're like, I could just lay here for forever. It's not because that space is that comfortable. It's just because you're enjoying not cleaning, not doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing. Because I've had that moment. And then later on, I'm like, man, I'm going to go hang out under the bed because it was so comfortable earlier. And then you crawl under the bed and it's like, this sucks. Like, why am I hanging out here? And then you crawl out. But so it's only good by perception, right? So it's better than cleaning under the bed. So I'm just going to rest here, but it's not really great in the grand scheme of things. So I think that the important thing to do is figure out like where those known stumbling blocks are, and then figure out like, is it just something you enjoy, or does it allow you to avoid things that you don't enjoy, right? Because I think that that's really important because you gotta be operating in your zone of genius, right, and doing the things that make you happy and feel fulfilled, but on the other side of business is there's going to be stuff that you don't really want to do. It's not in your zone of genius, and you might not have it outsourced to a VA or contractor yet. And if not, that's your job. That's your job until it's not your job anymore. So if you're getting really into stuff because you're avoiding some other stuff, you got to take a hard look at that.
Yeah, I agree.
That was an awesome little nugget, I would say there, right? Because if you can figure that out, you're going to be good.
It's huge. Because there's certain days I'm really good at it. Other days I fail miserably. So like yesterday was a good day for it. Like I just caught myself in that moment and was like, back to it, and then like on a couple different spots. And then of course I was done early because it's what's the theory? The stretch to the time that you have. I forget what they call it. What's the name of it?
Time. Is that Pareto's law? Time or work expands to fill the time allotted.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. But yeah, it's so true. And because when you throw avoidance in, I feel like that's where the expansion comes. It allows for avoidance largely.
yesterday with the girls not being here and being up in Gainesville, I mean, they didn't get back until probably 7:45 last night. So without any family pressure, man, my urgency was low. Let's put it that way, right? Because I would work on stuff, and then all of a sudden I would get sidetracked. There used to be this watch that I read about, and now that I am thinking about it again, I might need to go try to find this thing. I read about it on the Verge or something else like this. But what it does is that it doesn't really tell you time. You just wear this thing on your wrist, and it vibrates every 15 minutes, I think is what it was, right? So what I would like to do, honestly, is get one of those or figure out some sort of thing so that way I get a buzz as just like a mental mindfulness, like, hey, are you really here right now? Okay, yeah, I am really here. I think that would be kind of interesting.
That reminds me of The Office with the cold open with Jim and Dwight, where he trains him every time it
Yeah. It's like, what?
That's
but I think that's the thing, though, right? Like, I think that 4 or 5 years ago, the idea that I'm having this conversation about like how can I be more focused and how can I be more regimented in my day, 3 to 4 years ago, me would be like, oh, taking all the joy out of your day. But it's not that, right? I want to be as focused as I can be for as short a period as possible to get all my work done. So that way, outside of that period, I can be social and relaxed and, all the things that come with, doing good work.
Yeah, well, I also think that's some of the things that Tim Ferriss talked about originally in the 4-hour work week, way back in the day when all that was like the big hurrah, was you don't do the 4-hour work week so that you can go lay on a beach somewhere for the other 36, right? Because most people don't, number one, because they can't take vacation, or like guys like us, we like interesting problems. Like I'm actually even replacing the word work in my vocabulary. That's something I've been journaling about too. We haven't been real active in that group on the journaling side, but something I've been trying to replace in my vocabulary is work, because I have a stigma with work, and the world has a stigma around the word work. All of ours are a little different, right? But we all have like a negative connotation with work, and some of us have some positive too, right? But it's like there's other interesting things I want to be a part of. Yeah, that's what I mean. And it could be an interesting problem. It could be an interesting idea. It could be an interesting person. And that can be family, or that could be you and me chatting because we have time and we can. And so we can do something. And so it's like, how can I get this problem solved in a way that's really cool, but really efficiently, so that I can work on something else interesting?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's right. The more that we have these, right, because our conversation here about time and managing our time doesn't really change all that much from like day to day to week to week to week. It's just like, how can we be more intentional, right? And I really don't want to take the fun out of my like fun time, but I know that if I try to go into my fun time without feeling like my work is good and I'm on pace and doing all these things, I'm not mentally there. So if I'm not going to be mentally there and mentally present, that's a problem, right? So, the more I can get done during the workday, the better I can shut off and transition from BizJat or BizJohn to, home John, because it's only like 10 steps, right? So like the travel time doesn't do it, right? And like, you remember, thinking about this now, how much you would just kind of like build yourself up and also kind of wind yourself down on that drive to and from work, right? Like I remember driving to the Chase branch that you and I worked together, and man, it was a struggle. But like you're listening to music or podcasts and you're getting amped and everything, and you got like probably a good solid 30 minutes, and then you get there and you gotta have your 1, 2, 3 drill and morning meetings and all that stuff. And now it's like, man, it's just like 3 steps. Like I get none of that now, which is really crazy.
Well, I got a buddy who actually leaves it. So he works at his office in his house, right? And he's been doing this for a while. This is pre-COVID. Like 3 years he's been doing this. He wakes up in the morning. He does his morning routine stuff, right? Showers, gets some food, whatever. And then he leaves and he walks a block and puts on headset and walks a block, comes back to his house, walks straight to his office and puts a bag down. It's a mental trick. He says it just does a trick for him. So I thought that was an interesting, because once again, routine is such a massive thing. And of course, I'm like halfway through the tennis.
Oh,
What's it called?
inner game of tennis.
Inner game of tennis. I was like, that's not the mind game. Inner game of tennis and self 1 and self 2. Man, it's epic stuff. And I can see now, like where some of your language you've been using recently about being objective versus being judgmental of your own actions. I can see that why you've tapped into that, because it makes so much sense to go, look, I'm here performing. It's not my job to judge right now. I'm actually here to perform the best I can.
Yeah.
And I can observe and go, that's outside of the lines of where I want it to be, and keep going. But I think some of that can apply. I'm really interested to see over the next 3 to 6 months how these concepts merge with the other concepts we already talk about, and kind of form this even, little bit twisted more angle, different focal point. Because at the end of the day, if you can remove judgment from your activity while you're doing it, you become a better whatever athlete. That's how they're talking. But man, yeah.
The biggest,
I'm gonna get here real quick. I love that. Let's go for it.
The biggest uptake for me has been in my conversations with Alice, right? Because she's about to be 9, and is kind of like entering that age to where like she's got her own stuff and doesn't want to talk about everything with us and stuff like this. And so after reading that book, I started to realize, oh, I need to be the guy whenever she's like, well, I don't like that, as opposed to being like, well, let me tell you why you should like it. Yeah. Just like a bad salesperson, to, okay, tell me more. Why not? What don't you like about it? Right. Mm-hmm. And having that non-judgmental approach to my conversations with her, right? Because when you can do that with your kids, like arguably some of the hardest times to like have non-judgmental conversations, or your partner or your spouse or whoever that is, when you're having it with business people, it's easy. Yeah. Right. It's harder. It's harder when you run a dichotomy in like how you manage your relationships inside of business versus outside of business. Right. It's just easier to be consistent all the way through. Set really good expectations. Right. Try to build people up and just make sure that they're working on stuff that they really enjoy. And you've got really clear expectations about the deadlines and the consequences of not performing well. Like it's not rocket science, but when you can deal with somebody who's known, or how do I say this without sounding terrible? Like the authority is already established very well with my daughter, right? Like she knows that I'm her dad. So right. When I can show up and she's talking about something and she kind of has that look of like, hey, is this okay? And I'm just like, yeah, what's up? Mm-hmm. Right. Without any judgment, without any prompting and things like this, that's when you start to get really, really good. And then taking that into a sales context, when you can ask really, really good questions without an agenda, right? Without any judgment, and you tell them that, and instead of like, hey, Jake, is that really the biggest thing you're working on? I mean, there's so much challenge and prompting in that question and the tonality of it. Like, I kind of hate it. But if I say the same thing, hey, Jake, is that the biggest thing you're working on right now?
Right.
Right. The tonality in that thing, just by taking out the judgment and the prompt of it, turns it into a consultant style question, which is how we build trust, and not a salesperson question, which feels like a bear trap. Exactly.
It's a great point, because there's a lot of emotion attached to the family versions of those conversations. So hopefully, you like your family. And so any conversation with a business person is going to be far less emotionally tied in, which by nature should be a lot easier, right?
That's my thinking on it.
Cool. What's today?
Yeah. I have 2 calls. With both of them are second calls with people that have done role plays, or I've either started or I've completed. So we're going to be catching up today. I have a 9:30 with a client. Goal today is to get the outline figured out. I reached out to my buddy Chance, who's an attorney, and he's going to come in and we're going to do a segment together about like the business side of being a closer. Like, do you need a DBA, LLC, the pluses and minuses of how to do all that really, really well. And then I reached out to my CPA and was like, hey, from a tax perspective, would you be willing to like, could I interview you, record it, and then turn it into content for this course? Because, it's great to make really good money, but I also want people to be like set up for, financial success. So, and honestly, I think that will help add some individuality to the course, right? And give it maybe some some quality that you don't see in other courses that kind of do the same thing. This isn't just like a sales course. This is meant to teach you how to become a professional at-home closer who works 1099, right? With an owner's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So,
awesome.
So do that. I need to, I'm blocking aside an hour for each platform today, right? So like I'm going to spend an hour on Facebook, and the goal is to have, chats and DMs, but also post and engage and stuff like this, and then swap it, add an hour and go over to LinkedIn and kind of do the same thing, post and engage and follow up with some things and stuff like that. Because here's the deal, and we know this, but engagement is so important, right? Like yesterday I got on there just to engage, I did a value post because I was talking about my fingernails being red, and then I just started engaging, right? And I, hopped on some comments and, had some conversations, and that's where the notifications come from, right? Like if you're just posting and then hopping off, you're doing it wrong, and I know that, but it just feels so much harder to do on LinkedIn and feel authentic for some reason. Like on Facebook, I have no problem being me and doing my thing, but on LinkedIn, I kind of shut down, and I'm not exactly sure why.
I mean, clearly it's some sort of perception that you have around LinkedIn. I mean, so can you reset that in some way to say, look, what if you made it a thought experiment for the next week? Go, I think I know LinkedIn. I want to test my theory. Let's go get some data. Yeah.
And that's how I normally have to do that stuff, is kind of just turn it into a question, because when it's a question, then I can think around it. Like I just had this realization, honestly, just now. So part of it is, I need to figure out how to do it consistently without it just like taking over my whole life, because, I've got other stuff to do. We're doing our first role play groups on Thursday mornings. So inside my Facebook group, we're going to have role play groups, right? And in the beginning, it's just kind of like come one, come all. If you want to do like a mastermind role play group, then that's going to be something else. We'll do that later. But Thursday mornings from, I think, 9 to 10:30 Central Time, just come in. I'm going to try out these messenger rooms that Facebook has been kind of pushing and prompting, because I think you can do sub rooms fairly easily from there. So anybody who wants to come check it out, come join the group. We are going to run Thursdays, and it's just practice, right? We're going to talk about the Big Seven, and then, practice some conversations about how to deal with the Big Seven in a conversational format.
Got it. Cool.
So that'll be exciting.
Awesome.
I kind of had this moment yesterday of being like, do I want to do these role play groups? And then I was like, yes, I do it. Like they're that important, right? So important that I will be there by myself for the time allotted, right? Even if nobody else shows up, because like that's how important it is.
Gotcha. Good.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how many people show up, right? I mean, I've not done a great job of promoting this, right? It's kind of been like fits and starts. So I think that the first couple are going to be small, but hopefully people get in there and see some value of it and decide that they want to do more of it, and we'll go from there.
Love it.
What do you got today?
I've got a decent bit of blocking and tackling to do today, just because I'm working on some systems in the background. A couple different systems right now. So today is a blocking and tackling day mostly. Of course, I got my asks to do. The two fun things are I'm watching Gladiator for the first time with my son. He asked me.
You never seen Gladiator?
I have. My son hasn't.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm watching it with my son for the first time.
Oh,
yeah, I could have played that better. My son's seeing Gladiator for the first time tonight. I'll be there. So yeah, we're gonna watch that, and then let's see. There was something else fun I'm doing today too. I'll think of it before we get off here. Anyway, but yeah, a lot of blocking, tackling, some asks, a proposal's going out.
For you or
for me?
For you. Good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's one of those boring days, but I like boring days, like you, right?
Boring days are where you like actually make it happen, right? I mean, anybody can show up on the exciting days and have good days. It's like, how can you manage your bad, good days? Good, bad days?
Well, and these are the days that challenge me the most, and you can probably talk on that just from a personality standpoint, because I have written down the things I need to get done. But at some point today, I will go, man, this is boring, and I want to go talk to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I will find someone to go talk to. And what I have tended to do is go to Marco Polo instead of social media so I don't get lost for hours or whatever, go down that rabbit hole. That is a pattern I noticed. That's how I was getting there, right? Because if you read James Clear's book around atomic habits, he's really good at putting things in formulas. And so it's, you just work backwards from the habit. You go, what was the trigger in my brain or in the environment that made me feel the way that I did? Or what time was it? Or was it? And so go back to the trigger. And then that way, when the trigger comes up, when you recognize it's a trigger for a bad habit, you can be prepared and go, I have an alternate route for this. So that's kind of what I've been doing with that.
So 2 questions. The first question is, if you know you're going to hit that spot in the middle of the day where you need to go talk to somebody, like why not just put on the calendar in some way, shape, or form, right?
And say that again. If I know it's coming, what?
If you know you're going to have this need in your day, right, and you know that it's normally going to happen in the afternoon, why not schedule a phone call with someone for 1:45 to 2:30, so that way it's nice and capped, it's planned, it's scheduled, and it's this nice break in the day. Because, dude, you're a social guy, right? So like sitting there in the office, which looks like a Seinfeld set, by the way. It looks very Seinfeldian behind you, which is one of my favorite shows. So.
It is. I'm in a bedroom today, so.
But yeah, if you know you're going to stray, you might as well at least plan the stray in a way that it doesn't take you so off course, and you get the recharge and you get the benefit of it. So put an hour of Marco Polo on your calendar, right? Because at least then, do I feel that? Yeah. I think this is true. I would rather go off course in a way that I planned for.
Sure.
Then know that it's going to happen, and then have it happen and feel well, shit, I just can't make this not happen anymore. Yeah. If it's going to happen, force yourself to do it in a way that you can control and manage, as opposed to hope this doesn't happen today.
Yeah, and that's actually how I ended up on the type of schedule. It's back when I got serious about planners 5 or 6 years ago, as I realized that, I was really, really productive from 7 to 10 a.m. I could crank stuff out. And then from 1 to 3, I just really needed a break. Mm-hmm. My brain needed a break of some sort. And so I would walk, or I would schedule stuff. So when I was actually still going out, and doing things, wasn't all at home all the time, I would actually plan coffees, plan meetups, plan in the afternoon, because I knew that was coming. So I planned to make it productive also, right? Now it became Zooms in the afternoon, because I planned Zoom calls, but I got zoomed out. I'm like, oh gosh, another Zoom call. I gotta, so I still do the Zoom call thing. That's part of it. So yeah, I definitely do. But some of the internal pushback for me is, and this is something I tell people not to do, but this is me telling you how I feel about it, right? Is I like that to be spontaneous. I don't always feel that way at 1 o'clock. Sometimes it's 3:45, right? So if I plan something at 1, but if I fed that need at 1, would it even happen at 3:45 on certain days, right? You don't know. So, but yeah, I think it's a really good tip. It's a really good plan.
Yeah, I mean, once again, this is not about having the most boring, barren existence on the planet. It's about the control, right? Like whenever you and I were sitting down and doing our planning session, and we were getting into the weeds about how many asks do you need to make to get to these things, man, as soon as we start talking about the numbers, there's this cooling sense that just settles in me, right? Anything can be done whenever you plan effectively. I've got a hair right here, right? So when you plan effectively and you're planning ahead, you can get anything done, right? If you want to lose 100 pounds, you could lose 100 pounds. If you want to be able to do 50 pull-ups and you build a training regimen and you stick to it, you can figure it out. And I love that, right? But it's that knowing your numbers, knowing what's going on, and then having a plan, right? To me is instantly soothing and gratifying. So,
and for me, it's not the numbers themselves; it's the steps that give me this cooling feeling. It's
okay.
Oh, okay. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, I like to be able to know that there's, even though make the plan, throw away the plan. Mm-hmm. Patton or Lombardi, or whoever said that, is. It doesn't matter. As long as I have a plan that I feel like it's thought out, I don't care if the plan changes. I have a plan. Yeah. And we'll make another plan, right? So it's not the numbers. That's actually something that I've had to learn to love, is because if you don't have the numbers to back it, then your plan may not be that great. depending on spending. It may be a fantastic plan, but the numbers are wrong, so it won't work, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
Marion. All
Hey,
right.
this went a little long, but like I think there's some good stuff in here.
Yeah. Cool. I do too.
Awesome.
That just means we're gonna have an even better day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, man.
right.
Let's get to it. It's 8:15, and I will see you in the morning, Bill.
All right. We'll see you, Bill.